Hello, my name is Megan Kelley-Peterson. I am the program director of the AACTE program, the Alternative Certification for Teachers program at the University of Washington. And I'm going to talk us through the ways that we've been trying to solve problems and use video in order to solve those problems to support our teacher education candidates in this particular program. So to give you a little bit of background around the AACTE program, it's a 3-quarter certification-only program. It's an accelerated pathway into the profession. All of our teacher candidates are full-time teachers of record, some with varying experiences of working in classrooms prior to them becoming teachers. They're full-time teachers of record, enrolled in graduate coursework, and so taking courses in the evenings after teaching all day, and they can continue on after our 3 quarters to finish a master's degree, should they want to. And we meet weekly, and those meetings mostly take place in the endorsement area that they're seeking. So the particular content area that they're teaching, if they're an elementary teacher, all of us elementary teachers meet together, versus a secondary math teacher is not going to meet with a kindergarten teacher. Quarterly we meet as a whole program. And part of our problem is that we are a hybrid structure, working with teacher candidates who are both in person with us at the University of Washington in Seattle, and many who are across the state. So one of our big questions, supporting an alternative route program, but then also the fact that our teachers are at a distance from us. So how is it that we think about maintaining high quality teacher education while supporting people who are physically right next to me, and to the rest who join us synchronously during class sessions in location groups across the state of Washington. So across all of our program, we have a set of what we call core practices, the kinds of things that we think teachers do and can do in a variety of different ways. And our curriculum with them is to think about how a common principled vision, our commitments to the kind of teachers we want them to become, what we call ambitious teachers, by enacting these core practices. And so because they are classroom teachers, we are visiting that over and over and over and over again. And as the mom of a kiddo in public schools in Washington State, they could be my kid's teacher, and they are full-time classroom teachers. So I am really pushing on getting their practice better tomorrow. So we're trying to make everything that we do really relevant to their daily work as teachers, but also to become the kind of thoughtful, ambitious, reflective practitioner that we want them to be long-term, hopefully in the career. And so we have these ongoing cycles of enactment and investigation, and what we realized is that when we have teachers across the state, we need to think about getting access to them all, of the kind of instruction that we want them to be enacting. So how do we use video to show them what we want them to do? And then how do we use their videos to assess what they are able to achieve in their own classrooms? So we've thought carefully about the kinds of learning experiences that we want to provide for the teachers that we're working with. So we're thinking about how we care deeply about their experiences as a learner, and what we're trying to get them better at is this middle kind of goal of ours, which are these key practices of teaching. So like one, for example, is eliciting and responding to students. At any moment, in any grade level, you're going to ask questions as a teacher, and kids are going to give you something that you then have to do something with around the content. So if that's what I'm trying to get teachers better at, I'm not going to tell them tomorrow to go out and ask questions in your classroom. A little broad, it's a little general. I want to house it in something that's a very particular kind of activity or lesson structure that they can go out and do and has footprints in their curriculum. And so we think about how to get them better at those kinds of practices like eliciting and responding by creating an opportunity for them to engage in learning themselves. I'm going to talk us through one and show how we use video across the range of these experiences. So colleagues at UCLA thought about ways in which we might be able to support elementary students to think more productively about their work when they're counting. We're always counting in elementary math classrooms, and we want to be able to dive in and make that counting really productive. to recognize all the opportunities there are to talk about computation within counting. And so one way to do that is to ask kids to count together, and as we count together, let's write the count up on the board. And then let's pause and let's talk about what we're noticing, what patterns we're noticing, ways that we're thinking about the mathematics. And so in counting up by eights, there's lots of ideas that we can recognize around place value. We can start to recognize ideas about multiplication. We can start to justify patterns and try to understand why is that happening when we think about a representation of the count to help us dig in a little bit deeper to make connections to computation. So this is one of the activities that I expect in my elementary math methods courses my teachers to try and to go out and do. So if I'm thinking about their experiences as a learner, as a teacher, I want to try to help them experience that practice as well. It's very unlikely that they have tried counting in this way themselves or thought really deeply about counting as a means to better understand computation, to think about all of the operations. So they practice it, and I model it for them. We watch videos of counting at all different grade levels. And depending on the grade level they're teaching, they'll watch extra videos of that kind of task with kids. And we'll look at recordings together, and we'll make some sense of it to try to really unpack the mathematics, as well as think about the kinds of moves I'm making as a teacher in this moment. We give them structured planning protocols to help them think about how they're going to go try and enact this in their own classroom. And so we can help them in planning that. For those people who are in person with me, I can sit next to them, and for the people who are online, I sit next to the camera, and I talk with them about it, and I think, okay, we're teaching second grade tomorrow. What's the current unit that you're working on? How am I going to help you think about a counting task that you might be able to try in the next week or so? And then we rehearse. So we'll have someone stand up and try it on and think about what they might say and what that would look like with kids. And we rehearse because we're at a distance. The people who are online will just stand up and have the whiteboard behind them and try it on while I'm physically in Seattle and pausing them and coaching them in the moment. All of our teacher candidates submit video of their own practice probably about once a week. And so we are seeing 10 videos at least of them over the course of a quarter. And because they are full-time classroom teachers, that's where I feel like I'm going to be able to say that, yes, we're going to keep moving forward in supporting you to become a teacher, or do we need to think differently about what kinds of resources we need to provide or what kind of supports we need to provide. So we can provide we give them the kind of the shell of the kind of activity that we want them to go out and try, and they videotape that in their own contexts. They're all using their phones as video cameras or their computers. They're turning their laptops around and videotaping things. And they all then upload those videos and offer them up to us to be able to see. So we use the platform Athena, and what we are able to then do is ask our teacher candidates to really deeply analyze their own teaching practice. And so they can leave comments directly on their video. We can comment back to them. We ask them very particular prompts. Sometimes we'll ask them to comment on the video. Sometimes we'll ask them to write a written commentary, a written paper, or a reflection. We oftentimes will use prompts right from the EdTPA or similar kinds of prompts. Anytime they're uploading a video, they're also uploading a lesson plan. So we have all three components at any one moment of their planning, their enactment, and their reflection of it. And in a conversation like choral counting or in a task like choral counting, the student work is the discussion, right? Kids are not producing anything in the moment, so we're asking them to analyze and make sense of, and their moment of assessment of students is the way the students participate in the discussion and in the task. So they're trying to, our prompts might be focused on what claims can they make about what students are or are not making sense of based on the ways that they engaged in the conversation and in the task. And then we score their videos and their written reflections. And we use rubrics from the EdTPA to help us in scoring. We also use rubrics from the Center for Educational Leadership's 5 Dimensions of Teaching and Learning. Felt like the EdTPA rubrics were really helpful for us, but didn't give us enough to be able to see instruction in a much broader way. And so we needed an additional framework to help us think about that. So our teachers are submitting video about once a week and then getting feedback on that video where they've been scored by using rubrics that the state requires of them in terms of passing their EdTPA, and many states in Washington State use the Center for Educational Leadership's 5 Dimensions of Teaching and Learning as their teacher performance evaluation rubrics. So it becomes something that as all of our teacher candidates are classroom teachers, they are deeply connected then to the ways their principal are also going to be evaluating them. So I tried to just very, very quickly walk us through how we have tried to think about using videos in all aspects of our work with our teacher candidates, from them seeing videos, seeing examples of the kinds of teaching we want them to go out and try, to planning and rehearsing for it, to videotaping themselves and then using that video as evidence of both their student learning but also what they're taking up and trying on in the future. So some of our AACTE graduates have been very afraid to videotape themselves in the very beginning as they come in and start working with us. They will find themselves over the year noticing very different things about themselves in their videos. In the beginning, they're like, I say that all the time. I notice then they're harping on one particular thing that they might say, or the outfit they chose to wear that day, or the way that they wrote on the board, and how over the course of the year, because they're watching themselves, again, almost once a week, they really highlight that the video feels like it's the most important part for them to be able to reflect on their own practice. And they watch videos of each other oftentimes and are commenting on each other's videos and thinking about, we keep wondering about how do we get even smarter at using videos, because we can't be in their classrooms all the time. And so what does it look like to think about video as a way to both assess them but also push their practice? So those are the questions now. I feel like we've kind of started down a path that feels pretty productive to us, which leads us to quite a few more questions. And I'm wondering about how we can think more strategically about the growth of their practice over time. When we use these very particular rubrics, how do I keep coming back to seeing how those teachers are growing over time? And when I have 30 elementary teachers in the cohort and multiple teacher educators who are scoring these videos, so I didn't say yet, you can imagine how long it might take to score a lesson plan, a 20-minute video, and their written reflection. We've gotten it down to maybe about 90 minutes to score, maybe somewhere between an hour and 90 minutes. So I have to think about who are the coaches who are able to do that kind of work and then give really specific feedback. But I want it, when there's 5 of us who are scoring, how do I think about the trends or the patterns that we might be able to see over the whole cohort of teacher candidates, be able to move us all forward? And I also think about how to get even more efficient at the scoring, because it's quite time-consuming, but I don't want to lower the level of rigor of the kind of feedback that we're giving, because I think that we really are trying to be as specific and explicit as possible to be able to move that practice forward. But it leads us to, I spend 90 minutes to score this video, and I don't know what gets taken up from it, or how much my teacher candidate can go back and look at all that feedback that I left because they're a full-time classroom teacher and they're teaching 2nd grade again tomorrow, and how much is that video and that feedback that I have provided to them on this one video going to keep pushing their practice. We're wondering about how to make the videos more of an artifact over time that we can continue to engage with, and what might that look like. So I'm going to show you really quick here kind of what I'm able to see, and how these new questions that I have, that we're trying some new things in the Athena platform to try to see what we might be able to learn from it and maybe help to answer some of these questions that we have right now. So I can organize all of my assignments, each video, like that choral counting video. I want them all to kind of live in one little place. So I can set up an exploration that's like I equate it to like a folder on my laptop that I can have everybody's videos sent to, and I can say very clearly, here's what's expected. You need to upload your lesson plan alongside. You need to comment on your video using these prompts. So everybody's work lives in this one exploration. And then I can see their work over time in that exploration. I can see everybody's work there, and I can use some statistics to help me, some ways of noticing what they are all doing. So I think if I go here, I think this is what I want to see. So one of the explorations that we've set up, I'm new to using explorations. This is why I'm trying to get better at and faster at the scoring, right? So I'm trying to feel and figure out how the technology helps me to do that. So, for example, we have all of our rubrics uploaded into Athena. And so for this particular video, it's another kind of lesson like a choral counting task. It's posing a string of related problems. I have 3 rubrics that I'm scoring everybody on. And now I can see across a subset of my cohort, because not all of my teacher candidates are trying this, I'm just piloting it, I can see how everybody scored, and I can look that, all right, the using assessment to inform instruction, which is one of the EdTPA rubrics, I see that my students, my teacher candidates, are scoring either a 3 or a 4 on that. Okay, so I think that we're in a pretty good place there. So what am I noticing about that, or what am I going to try to do differently in a future lesson or task? And what am I noticing about the substance of student talk? Wow, most people are still at a 3, which is great. That's lovely, but where and how might I be able to push them onto the next level and deepen their opportunities to be able to orient students to one another? So I can see data across one kind of lesson. I can see the way that all of my teachers are scored. But if I do this, I think this is going to come up. I can also go into one particular teacher and see the way that I scored one particular teacher. And I can go back. I wanted to show there's ways that I have offered very particular feedback and action steps for each rubric, and I can look back to see what was the action step that I gave this particular teacher around her work on using assessment to inform instruction. I go back that way. So if I go back to here, then I can see that for this particular rubric, I scored this teacher at a level 4, and then I left very particular action steps. And the teacher gets this feedback, and I can see also over time what were the kinds of action steps that I provided for her, and is there a way that I can think about how she's going to continue to develop over time. So I'm trying to use some of the tools that are embedded in the platform to be able to help us become more efficient in our use of video, and to see ways that I might be able to become more efficient as a teacher educator in scoring, but also to be able to see growth over time. So since I'm new to trying these leveled indicators, if I picked the really salient rubrics and use those regularly across all of my assignments, can I see across time the way that an individual teacher candidate grows? Or can I also look at the range of my teacher candidates and what patterns or trends am I noticing, so that I can continue to refine my practice and become stronger at it and support the teachers better. Are there questions I might be able to offer insights to before another teacher educator shares her practice.
How many students do you have that you do this with?
Yeah, I have 30 right now. It's a fairly small program. We're growing up to 50 next year, and that's one of the reasons I'm trying to think about how do I become more efficient at doing this. I'm not sure what it would look like at larger. I recognize we're pretty small.
30 videos every week.
I'm not doing 30 videos every week, and we split them across, like for elementary, they are submitting a literacy video every other week and a math video every other week. So as their math instructor, I am seeing half of that in the course of a quarter, but across the main content areas, we are seeing 10 videos, and I can talk to my colleague about it. She's in the same EdThena group that I am. I can see her scores and she can see my scores. We could talk together about what do we notice about what a particular candidate is doing. They're really strong in one content area but not in the other. What do we think about in that and how we might be able to help them? And then I have additional scorers, so I have teaching assistants. I have one teaching assistant for each content area. So I score 15 videos every 2 weeks. It's a lot.
Suggest if you were going to do this with a program, would you suggest like the math, Methodists do all the math, and science do the science?
Yeah, so the other, what happens in my program is one of our 5 teacher education programs in the college, and our other teacher education programs, which are more conventional masters in teaching, full-time, not teachers of record, they use a lot of those methods courses are using EdThena also, and they aren't necessarily seeing a video a week because it's a methods course that looks a little different. Maybe they see 4 videos over the course of the quarter. And, but they are still using the platform to be able to think about how they can gather and collect that data and also provide evidence back to their teachers.
I walked in a bit late, so I might be asking a question. But in terms of user friendliness, what has your candidates' responses been? Particularly, I'm concerned about uploading the video, the upload time, how long it takes to get the video uploaded. Is there recommendations for the file size? And then also as far as placement of where to film. So, for example, we use the EdTPA. When our candidates are actually filming for their EdTPA, they check out a video that our department has because we advise they not use their iPhones or their Androids because of the sound and the quality. So is there a way to train the candidates? Here's how you take this area on the floor. This is where you stay in frame. This is the kind of camera you use.
Right.
So we can hear what you're saying.
Totally, great questions. I have watched many videos like this, right, because of the way they might upload it. But because I'm having them submit video once a week, right, or every other week, that by the time they take the EdTPA in the spring, I actually haven't had to do any of that negotiation about filming because they've figured it out too, right?
So exactly what we need. I'm from the state of California. CTC is our governing body, so our candidates have to be 600 hours over the year. And in our case, we have cohorts of up to 25 students. We're on a quarter system, 4 formal observations, so you can imagine the amount of time that's going to take. So we have to go to this video model. I have teachers who are 4 hours away, so I can't get to their classrooms to observe, but I can use video for those observations. And at first I was super tentative because I thought, no, there's no way. I have to be there in the room. It's the only way I'm going to get a feel for it. When I've watched 4 to 5 videos of a teacher in her classroom or his classroom over the quarter, I get a sense, and I know who those kiddos are, so that when I do go and visit them, we can talk, right? And I can check in. I think that our teachers are... I'm not super strict about where they need to place the camera the first couple of times because I want them to also recognize that they need to think differently about that because I'm asking them to reflect on their videos. So if they can't hear it, how can you learn from your practice if you can't hear it or you can't see what you're writing on the board, right? So I ask them to try those things out. Our teachers are in schools where they may have video cameras that they're using at the school level. They check out with their from the school or from the district. But we are also at places where the resources
they might not be there. And teachers are 4 hours from the University of Washington campus. They can't check out the video camera from the campus because they are 4 hours away and they only are supposed to keep it for a week or things like that. So I think I'm a little more flexible then around that, and I really push when they come to the EdTPA, they need to think about the quality of the video differently. The uploading process, I think, is incredibly easy. There's an app that comes along with it, with the platform, and it is a drag and drop. There's no conversion, there's nothing, and you can take videos from your iPhone, you can take videos from your laptop, you can take lots of different kinds of files and drag and drop, and then it pops up. I don't know how it works, but it works. I have very few teacher candidates who have a hard time. There's lots of also support documents and slide by slide pictures of here's what you need to do and here's what you need to, how you need to do that. Yeah, one more question. Yeah.
I was just wondering how your future candidates' level of confidence is going from what your practice is right now, and when they do start their EdTPA.
Yeah, I think that they feel pretty ready. Every single one of our assignments is almost like a little miniature EdTPA because we have the planning, instruction, and some sort of reflection, deep reflection. They're fairly confident. It feels like a lot to do on top of the fact that they're everyday classroom teachers, so they get a little overwhelmed by the size of it because at the most one of the reflection papers I might ask is 2 to 3 pages. So now they're doing a whole lot more than that. But I think they don't, the pressure that they might feel otherwise, they're super used to watching themselves and learning from it and recognizing that not all teaching is perfect. Whoa, it doesn't all go well, you know? But even if it doesn't go well, I can still learn from that. And if I reflect on that, I'm gonna learn even more deeply from it. So I think they're quite comfortable with it. And, but I don't think about using this to try to, you know, a great question is like, are we teaching to the test or are we trying to create reflective practitioners? And I think that what I hear them say overall more so is that they feel prepared for it. It doesn't feel scary to them, but they are thinking deeply about their practice. And most of them keep videotaping even after they're done with us because they feel like, I got to keep checking on me, and I got to keep checking to see what I'm doing. And so I find that a lot of them continue to videotape even after they've finished their coursework.
But I think the really focused articulation of their practice, justified with evidence, is...
Because I push on that, right? If they're going to make a claim about what their students learn, I say, where in the video, where in the student work, where in the artifacts are you able to tell me about that? Or can you show me a particular moment they can comment directly at that moment on their video? So it does prepare them to be able to really back themselves up. Yeah.
Well, good afternoon.